Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Teens for Business podcast. I'm your host, Ivan.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Jackie.
In today's episode, we'll discuss the recent rise of nicotine pouches, including the company ZYN. So, ZYN is actually the most popular nicotine pouch brand and has seen a significant surge in popularity through many social media platforms and creators, and especially since bans on e-cigarette flavors have been implemented. And nicotine pouches has been introduced in the United States in 2014 by Swedish Match, which is a subsidiary of Philip Morris International since 2022. And regarding some purely numbers, ZYN expanded in the US by 62% in 2023, and the brand has shipped 350 million cans, about which has 15 nicotine pouches per can in 2023. Um, and despite concerns over underage sales, ZYN continues to grow in popularity, particularly among college students. And like e-cigarettes, the product is available in several flavors and nicotine strengths and is marketed as a safer alternative to smoking cigarettes or vaping. However, there are many other health risks, including oral cancer, because you do put it into your gum. So yeah, there's also a lot of risks taking that, but it's not really that researched. And in terms of financial measures, ZYN has captured an impressive 76% retail market share in the U.S. nicotine pouch segment in Q3 of 2023. And in the last 6 years, ZYN shipments in the US has surged from 1 million to 334 million, which is a 119% annualized growth. And actually, as a bit of context, Philip Morris is one of the biggest international cigarette brands and tobacco companies, and they're responsible for, I think, the many cigarette products such as Marlboro. So yeah, and so as we all know, ZYN is incredibly popular online, but what are your personal insights on ZYN? And do you know anyone who uses it personally?
I can go first. Um, I mean, okay, well, first of all, I think disclaimer, like we're not saying like, it goes in or anything like that. Just I feel like we should put a disclaimer there. But me personally, I'm not like I don't like I feel like it's like the marketing is done very well because it's getting exactly to its target population. Like as a company, obviously it can't like come out and say like, oh, hey, like if you're, like under 21, this is like perfect. But I think what they've done from just a pure business aspect is almost quite impressive because now that like Juul and like the e-cigarettes, like we can't like people can't buy those anymore or like they were banned. I think they got like kind of like their perfect little target audience. Um, and so I think although that's like something that's not good for like the consumers themselves, and like obviously that's like underage and which is like not good. But at the same time, I think from a marketing perspective and from like the business perspective of ZYN, like it's actually quite impressive that they've, I don't know, like gotten to this point and like have gotten like pretty viral on social media. And also like when you said like they were acquired, I guess, by Philip Morris. That was actually I didn't know that. I thought that was actually interesting too, because Philip Morris like is like a pretty like long-standing company in this industry. So like for them, like also business wise, like when you think cigarettes or like when you think nicotine, you think Philip Morris, and then now like they're just continuing to add it's just like generations of I guess nicotine. Because you have like the younger population, then you get into like the older side. And so I think while I personally I don't use anything like that, um, I think again like it is pretty impressive like business wise, just looking at it, like all the numbers that were said. And I'm sure like the fact that like a lot of cigarette like e-cigarette flavors being banned, like that's probably a huge like benefit to them. And I want to see like when vaping first came out, like health experts were like, yeah, like maybe this is a little bit better than cigarettes, but then it came out like it actually wasn't that much better. And there just was a lot of like research that hasn't been done on it just because it's so new. And I like it's almost kind of like worrying to see like how many people are using it without like fully knowing the risks. Just because again like it's so new. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see like how research actually ends up comparing it in the end.
Yeah, there's still a lot of research to be done in this ZYN product. I actually never heard of it until researching for this episode, and I'm sure most of my friends also have never heard of it until now. And I don't, and that also entails that I don't know anyone who uses it personally. And based off of some of the research that I've done online, based off of what I've seen from the internet, what the ZYN packages look like, they kind of look like your classic like gum package or almost something like that, your classic mint package. And I think a lot of people think that they're safer just because they don't involve any smoke or chemical. Like we still don't know that yet. There's still a lot of research to be done. Like just there's a risk with nicotine in itself because there's a lot of health concerns that are associated with it, like cardiovascular issues and gum damage and potentially causing nausea or anything like that. So I think there's it's definitely gonna be interesting to see where ZYN like progresses in terms of like what it will become in the future. But I definitely agree with Jackie that ZYN's marketing has been really good and it has corresponded perfectly with the ban of e-cigarette flavors. So I think ZYN is like doing pretty well in terms of marketing and business, but I think we'll just wait to see what the research on the health impacts of Zen will look like.
Yeah, definitely. Jack raises a good point because the Zyn packets, they the card the box they come in, they really don't look that peculiar. So it's I think that probably plays a role into their marketing. And Zyn is a relatively new nicotine product, but there are also a lot of other nicotine products that have existed and were popular before, such as e-cigarettes. So why do you guys think that nicotine pouches have gained so much popularity over these other popular nicotine products? Also including stuff like nicotine gum.
I think there's a few like reasons behind it. Number one, the ban. Number two, if you compare it, for example, to e-cigarettes, like a vape pen, right? Like that's like if you think about like the ease for like a lot of underage people, like it's a lot easier to just like pop a Zyn in. But then if you're like having like vape pens or something like that, like it's like first of all, it's like bigger, and then second of all, like it's just like I think it's easier to conceal, which like from the side of the consumer, like from the underage perspective, is not good. Like again, we're not condoning this, but or we are condoning this, but like again, from the side of like Zen and like their marketing and like how their business is done, like that's so much easier for the consumer to do it if they did want to conceal anything. And so I think that like just the design of it is pretty smart. And then also just I think also like with a lot of like even non age restricted items, like the fact that it's like popular right now is very like that like just contributes to it because a lot of people if they see something viral on social media then they're like, oh, like let me try it out. And then once you're like with the group of people especially, like that kind of like goes up again. If that makes sense, like just because everyone is talking about it, everyone's on it. And so I definitely do think like there's definitely a lot of different reasons for why it's getting so popular. And then also like just over nicotine gum, I feel like a lot of the times like Zyn is seen like as a little bit more cool in a sense versus just some like random nicotine gum you can get. And like that's also due to the marketing factor that they have.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the current popularity of nicotine pouches definitely corresponds with the ban on e-cigarettes because like I think a lot of people would think that nicotine patches are a safer alternative to e-cigarettes or just normal cigarettes in general. Like, like I said earlier, um, by like taking like nicotine pouches, like it doesn't require any smoke, doesn't involve any chemicals, and those are obviously going to add a ton of added risks with what you're like consuming. So and plus a lot of people do take nicotine because it is associated with the production of dopamine, which causes whoever uses it to feel good. And I think a lot of people are attracted by that dopamine production in a way. So I think a lot of people just want to prefer nicotine, but also like want a safer way to do it, which is pretty much the reason why like many people could be switching from normal cigarettes or e-cigarettes to nicotine pouches in the future. And just this and the ban with some e-cigarette flavors and just everything in between just it just perfectly comes together for Zyn to be super popular nowadays. I don't know too much about nicotine gum. I've never heard the term before until it was mentioned just now, so I can't really say anything about that.
Yeah, I personally think that nicotine pouches have gained so much popularity because of social media and of like slang terms such as like upper decky. Like people on social media will say these things and do outrageous things such as like shoving 5, 6 packs of these pouches into their mouths and then making that as a viral video. And also athletes commonly like people, especially people who do play soccer in Europe, actually, they use these nicotine pouches to stay awake, because their games usually are very later in the day. So there's a lot of things that contribute towards the popularity of these nicotine pouches, and I know we have mentioned a lot about ZYN's marketing. So, how do you think ZYN's marketing strategy has contributed towards its popularity and especially among younger populations such as college students?
Yeah, I think like we definitely touched on this before, but I think the marketing, especially with a lot of their like I guess viral like virality on social media, like I think a lot of it isn't necessarily even like Zyn, like the company itself pushing it out. Like a lot of the videos we see, like a lot of um like posts, whatever TikToks we see, are just like friends, like just like regular consumers, showing off something or like they're just showing something. It's not necessarily like Zen coming out with like a particular like marketing campaign, which I think is like the interesting part because like obviously they are behind it, and obviously like the fact that even like consumers have in the first place is like a sign of their marketing, but like the most viral things on social media like about this like it's not directly from Zen as a company, and so I think that's like one interesting thing about it, and also like just the fact of like FOMO, like if a lot of people are like showing this on social media and then like friends are using it or like people around you are using it, then I guess some people might just be more inclined to also like, oh, like let me try it out because it's again like it's easier to use than some other products like, than some like competitor products. And then also like if you look at the prices, they're not crazy expensive. Um, it's like a few dollars for like so I just think like everything put together, like the fact that it's cheap. Like college students also like it's not like college students have like the most money on earth to spend. So like the fact that it's like not super expensive, like it's going viral on TikTok, the fact of like FOMO, I think that all comes together and just works for Zyn as a brand.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Zen actually like for their primary marketing campaigns, they actually target adults that are trying to manage their addictions to smoking and e-cigarettes. And that's the reason why so many of their actual marketing campaigns only are through Facebook and Instagram. But Instagram is home to a lot of college students and a lot of young audiences who enjoy sharing photos with their friends or just using it as a tool for social media. And so, like, obviously, as Jackie mentioned, like a lot of things in social media spread really quickly, and I think it's really easy for things and like trends to spread from like Instagram Reels, and then they're gonna show up on TikTok, and we obviously know how popular TikTok is as a platform, and both domestically and globally, and also like now we've seen the term like Zinfluencer being spread around for people who like to tease as in nicotine pouches, and also like definitely something I mentioned earlier, but the fact that there's the Zins like the packages that they come in, like they look like gum packages, so it's like really easy to get. It's pretty accessible. It's probably I would assume that it is probably available at like your lo local merchandise store or something, so it's really easily accessible, and just the nature of just social media and just peer pressure and social media pressure can just easily get a lot of people into taking those nicotine patches. So although like Zyn is like they try to market towards a specific audience, but social media definitely stretches that like target reach a little bit more, and that definitely reaches more college students, and as a result, Zyn is as popular as it is today.
Yeah, well, contrary to what Jack and Jackie have said, I think Zen's marketing strategy is not doing much marketing because I feel like everyone looks down upon nicotine products, especially in advertisements. So I think these type of companies, they usually try to tone not to do as much marketing once they have get their feet into, the market. And I feel like most of the heavy lifting in the advertising is done by, like what Jack said, influencers, and just simply FOMO, like what Jackie said. So definitely great points. And since ZYN is incredibly popular now, do you think ZYN's popularity will continue to rise in the near future or in the long run? And why or why not?
Um, Interesting question. I think short term, yes. Long term, I'm erring on the side no. Just because kind of like with a lot of like trendy products, like it like fades out eventually. Um, and I don't think Zen is one of those things where it's gonna be popular like I don't know, like 50 years from now. Um, I just can't imagine it being like 2070 something and then people are still like popping Zins. But I do think like short term, like the next few years even, but like definitely like next year, I think their popularity will continue to rise just because like there's still like a lot of people vaping and vape like because it's been a little bit like out more. It's been like popular for longer, I think is the better word. Like there's more like I guess research on it, and like it has been shown that like vapes are not like as good as they like market it to be. And so I think like it will be like a popular alternative, but like eventually I do think it's gonna die down because the main part is like people are like a FOMO on it. So
Yeah, I definitely agree that in the short term, since popularity will continue to rise. And I think a trend that we've seen with, especially in the tobacco industry in general, is that people are easy to jump onto a new innovation if it is marketed to be as a safer alternative than what is already popular or existing. So we remember back over the past few years when e-cigarettes were released, they were presented as a safer alternative to cigarettes. So obviously we know that that may not be true to the extent that it was marketed at. So like at that time, like still a lot of people switched to e-cigarettes because they thought it was safer than just normal cigarettes. And then this I think this trend will probably continue here with a little bit more popularity because Zyn doesn't involve any chemicals or smoke, so so obviously with that it is already inherently safer than e-cigarettes and just normal cigarettes in general. But as we see, this cycle of innovation will probably continue over like within the tobacco industry. So I don't know if Zin's success can stay as long term as it is, and potentially a new product in the future, which may actually be safer than what Zin is offering now, could become more popular in the future and provide consumers with what they want.
Yeah, I personally think that Zyn actually would have a long-term popularity due to its concealability, that people don't know if you have them in or not, but also their form factor because they deliver pure nicotine, unlike e-cigarettes or kind of cigarettes. You have to get them through, breathing them in, but nicotine pouches like Zyn, they literally take nicotine and put it into your bloodstream. So it's that based on how effective it is, it's also very addictive. And also there's not a lot of research showing the harmful side effects of Zyn. But I think this is a really negative stigma around nicotine products. That's why we're so hesitant. And it's shown a lot of research actually do show that Zyn products and nicotine pouches are effective on giving enough nicotine to help curb nicotine addiction. But as we all know, Zyn is mostly not being used for that purpose, which is common for a lot of other nicotine products. So Zyn did get acquired by a very large tobacco company. And so from the recent success and boom of Zyn, how might the tobacco industry be affected?
yeah, I think one way like as kind of like the years decades progress we see like a lot less people like using actual cigarettes. Like I feel like years ago like cigarettes like people like that was like the main like method. But now like there's like just like more like there's like e-cigarettes, there's obviously ZYN, like we've been talking about. And so like I think that's why I was talking at the beginning of the episode, why I was like surprised, well, not surprised, but like I was like intrigued to hear that like Philip Morris acquired them. And so I think like for the bigger tobacco industry as a whole, like there's less, like obviously it's still a thing because there are a lot of people still like using cigarettes. But I think like there's going to be a focus of like other methods of getting nicotine to people. And so I think like the success of ZYN is kind of like a little like textbook case, and like I think other companies, like not Philip Morris obviously, but like I think other companies in the industry will try to like have something similar or like come out with a new innovation that's like based off of ZYN. Like maybe it's like more effective, maybe it's like instead of like I don't know 30 minutes, it's like something else. And so I think definitely like it is like something that people will be looking at just because of its success and just how viral it's gone. And then also like to the last question we were talking about like marketing, I think that like this also kind of plays a role into it. Like Sin doesn't really market like people like once they had their initial like little campaign go off and people started using it, like the people making it popular are not Zyn as a company. It's like other, I guess like underage users, for lack of a better word, like other people, like other college students trying to convince other like, you know, like their own peers to use it or like say how like great it is. Um, and so I definitely I think like tobacco industry, it's like very big industry spanning across multiple generations of just like people. But I think there's going to be a more emphasis on like um underage, if like the underage population, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, I think like even though there's like regulations and like there's like obviously like counter campaigns of like how like harmful nicotine can be to people, I think at the end of the day, like there's still always going to be underage users. And so that's like kind of a pretty lucrative industry.
Yeah, definitely going off of Jackie's last point that the tobacco industry is very lucrative. It has a long-lasting legacy dating back to ever since when cigarettes were developed and were very popular throughout the past like 40 or 50 so years, or maybe even longer than that. So definitely that industry is very lucrative, and we've seen that Philip Morris has been taking like a big part of that market share by also acquiring e-cigarette companies and now cigarette pouch co I mean sorry, nicotine pouch companies. And then those like that, I think since I feel like it's easier for other companies to develop like nicotine pouches or products that don't involve cigarettes or like e-cigarettes as a whole. Like I feel like that definitely will cut into Philip Morris's potential like market share, and all, and I think also the what do you call it the tobacco industry will also like involve a lot more innovation in the future, and we've seen a lot of those like new products come up more recently from like other competitor companies, and that as a whole like will cause the tobacco industry to shift a little bit towards like a more like the more target audience, which apparent now is like obviously the younger generation, some of the college students or some of the young people in their 20s or early 30s. So I think the tobacco industry's target will probably shift from more of those like older populations to more of those like younger populations, and we will see a lot more innovation that is coming into the market in the future. And potentially, we could also see like Philip Morris losing a little bit of their market share to other companies that may start developing similar and potentially more effective products than what Philip Morris and is offering right now.
Yeah, I think I like the tobacco industry has like a very negative connotation, and so they're trying to market products to say, okay, this will curb your cigarette use by giving you another source of nicotine. So I think that kind of trend will continue because we saw that with e-cigarettes and now nicotine pouches. Somewhere down the line, they're gonna produce a new product that nobody has done any research on and say this will help curb cigarette use, and then everybody will say hurrah, hurrah. So I think that's kind of the general trend in tobacco industry to earn money because cigarettes obviously is dying down. But people still can be addicted to nicotine, and that's what the tobacco industry is going to find out. Although I don't really agree with their business model, but the tobacco industry will find other ways to get nicotine into everyone. So kind of addressing the ethical issues that we have also been talking about. So how do you think ZYN should address the ethical issues of concerning underage sales of a product that, while potentially safer than cigarettes, still contains addictive nicotine? And should the government become involved in these sales?
Yeah, I think the first question is like kind of hard because like obviously from like a consumer and like from like a non-company standpoint, like we should be stopping underage usage of ZYN, but as a company, um, and like as like a company for them, like business wise, um, having underage people like that's like a pretty big population of like the consumers right now, and so if they're like actively working against not having like underage people like use their product, that's kind of like not great for sales. And I'm not saying like this isn't what they should be doing. I'm just saying like from business standpoint, like this isn't like probably what they want to be doing. Like personally, I still think that like this is a very big ethical issue and like they should be at least trying to stop a lot of underage usage. But from like the business standpoint of the company, they might have like surface level, like I guess like please use safely and like surface level, oh, don't use me kind of things. But at the end of the day, like they know like the college population and even like high school population is like a pretty big demographic of theirs. And so I really can't see them putting too much effort in stopping like underage usage, as unfortunate as that might be. And then also, because of that, I personally feel like the government should be involved, but it's also kind of hard because it's already illegal. Like, what else can the government do in a sense that's not like overstepping? And so I think it's just like a very difficult ethical dilemma. And then like once you mix it into like the factor of like money as a company, um, like yes, I guess it's like fine for like people over 21, especially like if they are like using the product to get over like another like nicotine addiction. But it's really hard to like regulate this, which is why like underage like drug consumption is such a big deal for like it like why it's so prominent because it's like really hard to regulate.
Yeah, I definitely agree that this is a very difficult ethical battle, and with because it's obviously that like Zyn needs to find a way to like make their products a little bit safer for the general population, while also like they need to address this ethical issue in terms of the concerns of the monetary concerns. Because if you basically eliminate a lot of the underage sales, like Zyn loses a lot of their market share. Like in the tobacco industry, we obviously said that the industry, the target market is kind of adjusting a little bit towards like the younger audience. And if you take a lot of that younger audience out, like if you take off like the underage like audience, like that could probably like take out a big chunk of what the general tobacco market is targeting. And that's obviously very detrimental to like the current like business and the progression of just like the tobacco industry in general. And I I'm not sure exactly how the government would be involved. I think it would depend on what the research, what the scientific research and is like going to be producing in the future. And so I think, but I think something that could be considered is that Zyn and other like associate companies, maybe Philip Morris can be involved on this, but they can like make a little bit of like a safe guideline or a safe amount of consumption type thing for like those like non underage users. Um so that people who actually are using them for like a specific purpose, like getting over their addiction, can do so in a very safe manner. Obviously, the underage I guess like substance abuse type issue still needs to be a lot of regulations on that. It's still very unregulated, still very unclear on what's going to happen with that. And this obviously kind of applies a little bit here too with ZYN and nicotine. And I hope that there's going to be some sort of regulation that discourages those underage users from committing any sort of substance abuse as a whole. And I hope that in the future there will be some sort of policy that would prevent underage users from making bad choices and going that route that causes them to take illegal drugs or take nicotine or do anything like that.
Yeah, as both Jackie and Jack have said, I think the only thing these tobacco companies are willing to do will is slapping a very surface level warning, which is, oh, this product contains nicotine and could be bad for you. please don't buy me, but also please do buy me, right? So that's like the most, if it's unregulated, the most things that these tobacco companies will do to kind of, not be viewed negatively by the general public. So unless the government becomes involved, there is going to be no regulation in this field, or no like kind of consideration towards ethics. And simply because I feel like, especially with cigarettes are, they have since been around since a very long time. There's been a ton of research showing that they have several negative health effects. um and same with e-cigarettes. They've been pretty long time. I think almost 10 years now. And that's enough time for research to show, like, for cancer to progress, for research to show that it's harmful, right? And there's a lot of social media videos out there showing people who have vaped having various type of cancers, and and then people watch and be like, oh yeah, I don't want to be that guy, right? And but for ZYN, that's a relatively new product, and by the method of the delivery straight into the gum, straight into the blood, I don't it's probably harder for a lot of research to kind of show a correlation of negative health effects. So unless that pops up, I do not think the government will take action, because it's probably down on their priority list. They're like, we have other things to talk about, and ZYN is not one of them. Unless some research shows that ZYN has several negative health effects, these politicians are getting paid off by these big tobacco companies, so they will not really talk about a lot about that. But that is just my 2 cents. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Teens for Business podcast, and I wish you guys a great day and coming back for our next episode next week.